Hi, welcome back to the tutorial series on Proximal One, an interactive audio system for Unreal Engine. In this video we're going to be having a look at material parameter collections and how we can use them to send information from an audio instance into a material shader. So this will work with a material parameter collection of your choosing. So a material parameter collection, in case you don't know, is a set of parameters that you can use to send variables from your blueprint into a material shader. And Proximal One's got 5 different ones that you can assign to it yourself and use those in your own materials. So we're going to have a look at how we do that. But first, we'll have a look at what we've got going on in the scene. So if you watch the proximity fade video, you'll be familiar with what's going on here. If not, I will just quickly run through it. So we're using the proximity fade to create this sort of, I'd call it a corridor, where the sound is on either side of the corridor. And we're looping over an electrical sound, and we're applying a low frequency oscillator to it with a randomized rate, so that it gives like this effect of the buzzing sound going up and down in volume in a sort of random way. So if I press play now and run into here, we can have a listen to see what's actually going on. Okay, so you get the idea. Anyway, I thought this might be a good starting point for showing the material parameter collections, because we can actually use that gain envelope to control a variable in a material shader. So I've gone ahead and added this sphere to the scene. It's just a simple static mesh created using the modeling tools. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it over here and just position it. And I'm also going to turn off the visualizer for this audio instance, because we don't need that. So we'll come over here. So you can set that to none, or you can tick hide color visualizer at runtime. And also, I'm not going to want to see that collision box, so we can set hide collision box at runtime as well. Just tick that. So with the instance selected, if we come all the way down to, I'll just collapse these. If we come all the way down to here under event dispatchers, we've got 5 different categories for material parameter collections, and each one of these allows us to send a variable into a material parameter collection, and you can choose the parameter collection that you want to use and then enter in the variable name. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to create one of those if you don't already know. So we've got 5 of these. The first one is for the gain envelope. The second one is for the proximity fade variable. The next one is for the filter 1 proximity variable, and then filter 2 proximity variable, and then custom meta sound proximity variable. Now all of these variables are a float value between 0 and 1. So it's good to be aware of the value range. So to demonstrate this working, we're going to need to create a material parameter collection. So it's quite simple to do. Just come down to the content drawer, and then anywhere in the content browser, you want to right click and come down to material and then select material parameter collection, and let's just give it a name. Okay. Now if we double click on that, you'll see this window pop up. So I'm just going to resize it a little bit. And here, where you've got this little plus symbol, under scalar parameters, and this is important, don't use vector parameters, use a scalar parameter. Just click the little plus symbol and then expand where it says index, and then we can choose a name for the parameter. So I'm just going to keep it simple and call it glow. And also the default value is going to be the value that it sets it to initially, so I'm going to keep that set to 0 in this case. So I'm just going to save that. So on that sphere I've added a really basic material, so if we have a look at that now, so all it is, so on this material I've just got this colour going into a multiply node, and then I've got this variable which is a scalar parameter called brightness, and this has been converted to a parameter. So if we were to adjust the brightness of that now, you should see it update in the world. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to swap this out for our material parameter collection. So if I right click on that now and search for collection parameter, and when this comes up you want to select from the drop down menu the parameter collection that you created, and in this case it's already selected, so that's good. And then where we've got parameter name, we click on that, we should see the parameter that we created called glow, so you want to select that one. And then what I'm going to do, because that's a float value between 0 and 1, and we want our brightness to go a little bit higher than that, I'm actually going to keep this scalar parameter and just multiply this one by this one. So if I pull off of that now and find a multiply node and connect that like that, and then we're going to connect that to the multiply of our colour, and I'm going to set that to a slightly higher value. So it looks quite bright now, but yeah, that's better. And if I just save that, so how we get that to send from the audio instance. So back over here in our audio instance settings, where we've got the first one, send gain envelope to material parameter collection, if we tick that, and then with our material parameter collection selected, which is this one, if you come back over and just click the left arrow, it will assign it. And now this bit's quite important, you need to make sure you enter the parameter name in exactly as it is in here. If it's not entered in correctly, when you press play there will be a yellow message in the output log, and it will pop up as well when you hit stop. So, but as long as you've got that entered in correctly, you shouldn't get any errors. Okay. Now if we was to hit play, what should happen is when the player comes in here, it's going to trigger the sound to play, and then when we come over to the areas where the proximity fade adds gain to the sound, we should see this thing start to glow up. So if I hit play now, Okay, so you can see how we can now sort of add some life to go with the sounds that we've created using this system. There's a couple of other things that I want to go over quickly as well before we wrap things up. So currently this audio instance is set to kill the audio when we leave the collision box. So let's have a look and see what happens when we do leave the collision box. Okay. You notice the glowing ball didn't stop glowing. Now, what it's doing is basically when it stops the audio, the last set value that was sent to that material parameter collection is the one that's going to stay. But we can actually choose a value that we want it to use when the meta sound stops. So if we come back down to this setting, these settings again, you've got this box, use gain envelope stop value. Okay, so with that ticked, it's now going to use the value that's set here. So as soon as the meta sound stops, it's going to send this value into that material parameter collection. Okay, so let's have a look now and see what happens with it. Okay, so you can see now we can sort of customize its behavior a little bit better, and that might be more useful than just keeping it set to the last value. So another thing to be aware of, if you're using the material parameter collections and the proximity variables, the proximity variables run on a timer, so you can actually change the rate of that timer if you want a smoother effect. So there's two different ways that's handled. So in the clock blueprint, there's a setting here called proximity evaluation processing interval, and this is a global setting that will apply to everything by default. But if you want to change the rate just for one instance, if you come onto the instance and then under general settings, we've got these two settings here. So we've got use clock blueprint setting or use audio blueprint instance setting. So if we set it to instance setting, then we can use this value here to set the rate. Okay. So another thing to be aware of, if you've got more than one instance and you're using the same material parameter collection variable on more than one instance, if they're both playing at once, they're going to be conflicting with each other. So the best approach is to set them up so that they're never actually playing on two different things at once. So how this is going to work is the variable will only get sent to the material parameter collection whilst the meta sound is actually playing for that instance. So as soon as it stops playing, then it's not going to conflict with another instance that might be using it. So that's worth bearing in mind. So obviously what I've just showed you is a real basic example of what you could do with this, but you could create a much more complex material shader. And you could also combine it with the event dispatchers. So if you had your material inside of a blueprint, for example, then you could also combine it with triggering using the start and stopping of the meta sound as well to use that as well in your logic. Okay, so yeah, hopefully you see some potential for this. If you've got any questions, then leave them in the comments, and I'll try and get back to you. So yeah, I think that covers it for now. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in another one. Okay, cheers, bye.